The galactic summit was about to begin, and across the gleaming halls of the conference station, a dozen different species had gathered, each representing centuries of culture, technology, and military strength. The Astar entered with their smooth, green skin and elegant biotechnology, moving with the confidence of royalty. The Krellorians, who communicated through a complex web of light and sound, analyzed one another with hypnotic precision. The Lactari, with their many limbs and a 1,000-year grudge against humanity, took their place in silence. The Trollocs, clad in fearsome exoskeletons and known for their cold calculation, were already preparing to push for new treaties. But none of them could stop talking about the humans. Captain Mark, the human ambassador, walked into the chamber, his team following behind, taking their seats with an air of complete ease. Mark smiled and greeted the other delegates with a firm handshake and a few light jokes about how much coffee they could drink before the negotiations began. His team seemed unaware or perhaps unconcerned with the complex political web unfolding around them. They were here for one purpose: to finish the job with as little noise as possible. The other species watched them with a growing sense of unease. One by one, the delegates leaned back, studying the humans with a mix of fascination and anxiety. These newcomers did not fit into the expected mold of interstellar diplomacy. They were too relaxed, too informal. It was unsettling. The humans, so new to galactic affairs, were treating the summit like it was just another Monday morning meeting. "Captain Mark, we are glad you could make it," said Admiral Jolin, a veteran who had spent 3 centuries forging interstellar treaties. He extended a hand, his translucent skin shimmering faintly with tension. "Of course, Admiral, I thought I would get here early and maybe grab a coffee before things got heavy," Mark replied with an easy grin. He motioned to his team, who were quietly sipping from thermal mugs and chatting about sports. The alien envoys exchanged uncomfortable glances, struggling to understand how humanity's carefree attitude matched their growing reputation for sudden and overwhelming violence. The Astar and Trollocs had long prepared military contingencies for the day when humanity's inexperience caused them to make dangerous mistakes. But that assumption was proving incorrect. What unsettled them even more was the fact that the humans did not appear to care about the stakes at all. "We have prepared a comprehensive treaty," said Ambassador Elnar of the Krellorians, hoping to steer the discussion toward a formal tone. "It includes a detailed framework of mutual trade agreements that would benefit all parties." Wait! Mark interrupted, raising a hand. "You are telling me none of you have figured out how to brew coffee yet?" He glanced at his team, who were barely holding in their laughter. "Let me guess you all have been too busy with war politics and treaties to deal with the important stuff." The Krellorians flashed a rapid sequence of lights that could have meant confusion or shock. "We do not drink coffee," said Elnar, his lights flickering uncomfortably. "Well, there is your first problem," Mark replied, leaning back with a knowing smile. "Tell you what, get yourselves some decent coffee, and maybe we will be ready for serious negotiations. Until then, why not just relax and chat a little?" The room fell silent. The other delegates stared at Mark as if he were some strange creature in a controlled exhibit. The humans were no. They were more than a curiosity now. The humans had become an enigma. How could they act so casually, so confidently, in a setting where centuries-old powers tread carefully? The summit was already off to a shaky start, and as the humans carried themselves as if attending a casual picnic, the tension among the delegates deepened. The humans had not bothered to display their best behavior. They seemed immune to the pressure that every other race felt. There were no hushed voices, no subtle manipulation of diplomatic channels. To them, this was just another transaction, like buying a cup of coffee. Admiral Jolin stood slowly and addressed his advisors in a low voice. "We must not underestimate these humans. They do not understand the stakes, and that is exactly what makes them dangerous." Across the chamber, Captain Mark smiled warmly, appearing completely unaware of the whispered concerns rising around him. But his team was aware. "Hey, Mark," Lieutenant Carter leaned in slightly. "Are they talking about us?" She nodded toward the other envoys, who had begun murmuring behind concealed hands. They are, and I could not care less, Mark answered with a shrug. You know what, we have been sitting here too long. Who is up for a quick game of poker after this? The summit dragged on, and with every passing hour, the mood in the room grew tighter. The alien delegates were used to holding power. Their strategies were legendary, polished, and precise, forged over long centuries of interstellar diplomacy. They were not ready for a species that walked in and ignored every one of those traditions. The other races tried everything to pressure the humans into the usual ceremonial games, but the humans refused to follow those rules. Mark did not treat them like ancient rulers or wise galactic thinkers. He treated them like people, and that was what disturbed them most. Hours later, the summit ended. Delegates left in a quiet daze, still trying to understand what had just happened. The humans had bargained like they were buying supplies, not building alliances. As soon as the chamber cleared, Admiral Jolin turned to his officers. We underestimated them. They have no idea how dangerous they really are. His voice was slow and heavy, laced with disbelief. You mean they are dangerous because they do not know it? One of his aides asked cautiously. That is exactly it, the Admiral replied as he turned away. Humanity has no idea just how terrifying they truly are. And that is why we must watch them. We just signed terms that make no strategic sense, and they did not even care. The realization struck him like a sudden blast of winter air. The humans were not playing the same game as the rest of the galaxy. They were not trying to win. They were just doing their jobs. And somehow that was more frightening than any weapon. Far from the summit, David Thatcher sat alone in a dim cell aboard an Astar warship. His arms were chained to the wall and his ankles bound by loose metal restraints. Yet he did not appear distressed. He had been dragged through multiple checkpoints, subjected to psychological interrogation, and now placed in what was clearly a prisoner of war holding chamber. But despite all this, Thatcher looked calm, even relaxed. The Astar believed they could break him. They had done it before with dozens of species through intimidation threats and mental pressure. They expected Thatcher to respond the same. After all humans were new to the galaxy, surely they would fold under the right tactics. But Thatcher did not fold. He was not afraid. He was not begging. He was not even particularly interested. Did you know, Thatcher began in a calm voice. The last time I was in a room like this, I was chained up with a bunch of Russian diplomats. Different room, different cuffs, but honestly, the interrogation techniques feel familiar. The Astar interrogator paused its mechanical frame, stilling the expressionless face, tilting slightly as it absorbed the statement. The alien had been listing demands, hoping to pressure Thatcher into revealing strategic information about Earth. But the human was not cooperating. And it was not defiance. It was apathy. Why do you find that funny? The Astar commander asked, clearly irritated. We are holding you captive, human. If you refuse to comply, your leaders will suffer. Thatcher gave a long, slow stretch, as if just waking from a nap. Oh, I am sure they will. But you are missing the point. You think you are scaring me. But really, I am just here for the coffee. And let me tell you, I need it bad. You would not believe what I went through to get a decent cup before this all started. The Astar fixed their black pupilless eyes on him, narrowing in confusion. Their methods were proven. They had shattered minds and stripped away resistance across countless worlds. But this human sat still, bored, amused, and completely unshaken. That did not make sense. Enough games, the Astar commander snapped. You will give us the locations of your military bases. If you refuse, there will be consequences. Thatcher exhaled, slowly, and rubbed the back of his neck. Sure, but you are going to have to wait. I have been up all night, and galactic politics makes my head hurt. I need a break. Maybe a nap. Definitely coffee. I will talk. Just not until I get a cup. The alien tensed. You believe you can make demands. You think you can ask us for coffee. Thatcher's lips curled into a slow grin. Yeah, that is exactly what I think. It's hard to make decisions when your brain's running on empty. Believe me, I need to be sharp to figure out how to stop you guys from blowing up my planet. The Yao. Astar Commander's hands twitched with barely contained rage. Thatcher's complete lack of fear was unsettling. His lack of urgency was irritating. And worst of all, he treated the entire situation like an inconvenience, not a life or death matter. One of the Astar guards stepped forward, clearly unsure how to handle this. "Commander, he's not reacting the way he should," the guard said. "I can see that, idiot," the commander hissed. "Perhaps we should escalate things. Perhaps we should show this human what true pain feels like." Thatcher shrugged. "You could try, but you'd be wasting your time. I've been tortured by experts. You don't even know where to start." He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ceiling with a bored expression. "Here's a fun tip, though. Start with the coffee machine. If you get that working, I might be more inclined to cooperate." "Enough!" the commander bellowed. "We'll break you! You will tell us everything!" Thatcher finally shifted in his seat, sitting up straight with a smirk. "Look, if you don't stop with the whole threaten me with your superior abilities act, I'll just start telling you my favorite torture tactics. And that, my friend, would not go well for you." The Astar commander stared in disbelief. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. There was supposed to be fear, desperation. A human diplomat was supposed to beg, plead, and follow every order. Instead, David Thatcher was making jokes and requesting coffee. "Your kind doesn't even know fear," the Astar commander growled. "You will bow to our will." "Nope," Thatcher replied easily. "You're thinking of someone else." "Here's the deal," Thatcher continued. "You release my friend, and I'll tell you everything you need to know. If not, well, we can just keep doing this. I've got plenty of time, and you look like you need a nap." The Astar stared at him, utterly confused. Thatcher had given them no information. He hadn't panicked. He hadn't begged. He had simply waited. And in the process, the Astar began to realize something. Their tactics weren't working because they didn't understand humans. To them, pain was a tool. To Thatcher, it was just another Tuesday. Finally, the Astar commander, clearly frustrated, leaned forward. "You're wasting my time." "You're wasting my time," Thatcher replied nonchalantly. "But hey, at least we're both here. So let's make it easier. Release my friend, get me my coffee, and we can call it a day." The commander hesitated. He was no longer sure if this human was bluffing or if he was simply immune to fear. The Astar had never faced anything like it. The Astar weren't the only ones who had underestimated humanity. As the galaxy's most advanced species, the various alien coalitions saw Earth's military as a minor nuisance, nothing more than a small developing world with chaotic politics and unpredictable behavior. So when the decision was made to invade Earth, it was assumed that the task would be quick and simple. After all, the aliens had fleets large enough to wipe out any planet in their path. They launched their assault, confident that Earth's defenses would fall before their might. They were wrong. Humanity had been preparing in ways no one could have predicted. As the first wave of alien ships entered Earth's orbit, the military response was swift, deliberate, and, much to the aliens' shock, entirely unbothered. From their vantage point, it seemed as if Earth's leaders were going about their day like any other, as though the war had not yet begun. In fact, the first human response came from Captain Mark, the same ambassador who had survived the summit and was now stationed at the front lines. "All right, boys," he said, a grin still plastered across his face as he took a sip of his coffee. "Let's show these guys how we do things on this side of the galaxy. And someone get me a damn donut. I can't fight on an empty stomach." The alien fleet preparing to strike Earth with devastating force expected humanity to quiver in fear, to send desperate pleas for peace, to tremble under their superior weaponry. What they didn't count on was the fact that humans didn't work like that. They certainly didn't expect the human military to engage with such casual efficiency. The human fleets fired back, but the most remarkable part wasn't the technical prowess of their weapons. It was the lack of panic among the soldiers. Their comms were filled with nonchalant conversations about which sports teams were winning or whether a nearby fast food joint was still open. "Target locked," Mark's voice crackled over the radio. "Hey, anyone seen the new episode of that alien reality show? Those guys are hilarious. Anyway, let's give them a good show, guys." The enemy commanders, watching the battle unfold from their flagship, were stunned. Ships were exploding left and right, but the humans, laughing, joking, barely seeming to take the whole thing seriously, were causing more damage than anticipated. "They're fighting like it's just another day at the office," one alien commander muttered, watching as Earth's military decimated the invading fleet. "This is impossible." On the ground, it was the same story. Human soldiers pushed forward. Nothing about the chaos around them seemed to affect them. They casually knocked out alien invaders, moved forward, and continued making sarcastic remarks about the invader tech. "This thing's about as effective as a paperweight," one soldier muttered, tearing through an alien plasma shield. "These guys really think they're going to make a dent in Earth?" Cute. The ASA, still reeling from the hostage negotiation, sent a message to their allies, urging them to focus on Earth's cities. Surely the humans would crumble if their civilian population was targeted. What they didn't anticipate was that civilians didn't panic. Instead, they continued about their business as if nothing had changed. At a small diner in Texas, a group of civilians sat down to lunch, oblivious to the battles happening overhead. One man, noticing the sudden shake of the ground, looked up at the ceiling and said, "Is that a meteorite? Maybe we should stop using the grill so much. We could all be roasted if it keeps up." "Don't be ridiculous, Jim," his friend replied with a laugh. "I've been in this town for 20 years. Ain't no meteorite doing that." The rest of the group nodded, continuing their meal as if there wasn't a war happening above them. They had no idea how many alien ships were above, preparing to strike, or how much the humans had already done to push them back. To them, this was just another Tuesday. Back on the front lines, Mark took another call over the comms. "Mark, are you in position?" "I'm good," Mark responded casually, adjusting his gear. "In position. And hey, do we have any good news from home? My wife's probably been eating all the snacks while I'm away." "Focus," came the sharp reply. "You need to secure that command post." "I'll get there when I get there," Mark quipped. "After all, there's no rush, right? We're not in any danger, are we? Just secure the post. We've got incoming." As the battle raged, the human soldiers held their ground, taking the fight directly to the invaders. Even as their ships were assaulted by alien weaponry, the humans pressed on. They didn't rush. They didn't panic. Instead, they maintained an air of casual superiority that only made their enemies more uncomfortable. The worst part? The humans didn't even seem to understand what they were doing to them. This wasn't a grand battle. It was just another task to complete. A massive Astar battlecruiser approached, ready to bombard Earth's capital. It loomed in the sky, massive and threatening. But instead of firing, the ship hesitated. The commanders began to realize that every attempt to crush humanity was met with indifference. It was like trying to destroy a species that didn't even care to acknowledge their own survival. "Tell me again, why are we afraid of them?" one commander asked, staring out at the destruction their forces had endured. "They're barely trying," the second commander replied. "They don't fear us. They don't even acknowledge the severity of the situation." Finally, the human counteroffensive struck. In one massive coordinated strike, Earth's forces launched everything they had at the remaining alien fleet. Explosions filled the sky as alien ships began to fall, one by one. "I told you not to mess with Earth," Mark said into his comm, a grin still on his face. "I really didn't think I'd have to say it again, but hey, here we are.